Hello Dream Team, welcome to Soho, where some might say the good, the bad and the rugby has its natural habitat. And after a summer of stories and a season that lies ahead packed with incredible moments, tonight we're at the Underbelly Boulevard in Soho to look ahead at what is to come. And at moments like this, we'd just like to pause and say a massive thanks to our partners Continental Tires, for whom safety, performance and grip are the name of the game. Let's get to it with the one and only Mr. James Haskell and the Lord himself, Mr. Mike Tindall. Come on out, the chaps. Shall we have a hug? Go on, we'll have a quick cuddle. Welcome along. You sit yourself there. Well done to you. Very alpha male hugs all round. Should we put you two there and then we'll bring out our special guests in just a moment or two.
Hello,
We're
bro.
off and running.
Hello.
Season
God,
5.
it's
God,
tight, isn't it?
you put on a bit of size, haven't you?
Yeah, been in the gym,
Yeah,
haven't I?
tins, isn't he?
Season 5.
Carrying the royal family actually built your upper body, innit?
It's a bad state of affairs, isn't it?
Yeah.
That, but,
You're looking
All
well.
that nuggying Louis and all that, pretending to be really friendly, absolutely shatters you.
you should take some of my
I would
PR
actually, yeah.
plan.
I should
it
do.
works.
He's so relatable because he's from up north, isn't he? Down to earth.
Is that right?
Yeah, apparently.
We haven't seen you with a microphone so far this season. How was your summer? We saw quite a lot of you on the front pages. What was the inside scoop on air tagging your kids and
Yeah,
horsey adventures?
I mean, it's proper news, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
The fact that the actual realism in the fact that I knew that Mia would want to go off by herself, and it just happened to be that I played in the British Masters Pro-Am, and one of the in the goodie bag was an air tag that every time I got in the fucking car, it was like, would you like to connect to this air tag? No, fuck off. And then I got to, I literally turned up to Burley to watch Zara, and I was like, she doesn't have a phone. I know she's going to go missing.
This is Mia rather than Zara.
Yeah.
Mars,
No, I try-
41?
They hold it like that. Hello, this is 41. The Palace. Could you please connect me?
I
Yes,
try
madam.
and keep her away from social media because she'll leave me in a heartbeat. So,
Watch your foot start following me. Her eyes aren't painted on, Chief. That's right.
Oh, well, I
not
think
made
that
of
would
wood.
work for me. She's also not a bellend like you, but
Very true.
We've missed each other. We really have.
yeah.
We've really missed each other.
Good point, well made.
4 months break has really diffused the tension.
and so I turned. She went missing at badminton because 2 of them went off, and then you're trying
Again,
to
Mia,
get
not
some.
Zara.
Yeah, Mia.
Let's be very
Well,
clear
actually,
about
Let's
that.
use names, Mike.
We didn't lose Mia, but she didn't arrive where we were supposed to be to watch Zara at the right time at badminton. So when I arrived, I'm about to get out of the car, and again, this thing tried to connect. I was like, actually, that could be quite useful for me.
Yeah.
So I then thought she had denim shorts on. I was like, she's going to lose it out of her pocket. So I literally hooked it through one of the loops in her. So it was on show. I didn't even think about that this could be a thing. And then you wake up the next day and go, and you get a phone call from someone going, oh, the Sun want to know if air tagging your kid is the right way to go forward. I was like,
Should we air tag Hask?
You need to have a conversation.
How has that become a thing?
You need to have a conversation with my ex-wife about air tagging an ex-husband. I leave the house, there's a drone. I talk to a woman, he goes, beep, beep, beep.
Now I actually understand that.
Yeah,
but,
I can understand it, yeah.
Yeah, and then Lucas like kung fu kicked Lena off a thing. It's just, when you just sat there going, "There's not much I can do about it," and then they went off to play, and you look down there, it's like, as long as he doesn't take his shirt off, and you're like, "Fuck!" And I'm so far away. There's nothing I can do about it. Fortunately, he didn't get naked because he does love getting naked. So
Where does he get that from, I wonder?
No idea. No idea.
Producer Tom's notes say, ease the train out of the station, nice gentle start to season 5. So we've got royal scandal and Hask marital woe again for the papers to pick up on. A couple of others. So
I'm sure your parents are so proud.
My mum and dad
Should
are
we
actually here.
touch on the fact that Mr. and Mrs. Haskell have bought VIP tickets to this evening's event to see their son?
It's the only time
which
they
is
get
a lovely
to see
way
him.
of engaging with James. He said,
you.
you can book in, go through my PA and she'll give you a discount link.
I charge them half price.
That's
I
lovely.
I think after
Do they get the free bottle of black eye as well?
No. it's not.
That's,
I'm not
right.
giving,
that's for Christmas.
Oi.
He's actually hidden that. He's going to put that in the stocking.
We're running a business, not a charity. No, I remember when I first came to a first show years ago, and I remember my mum's very polite and very well to do, and doesn't like all the nonsense and the swearing and the scathing behaviour, and she tried to brought me up in a good way, but there's just sort of
well.
she got this. Yeah, it went really well.
Can you get a refund on that?
You've instantly made everyone judge your mother,
Yeah.
not in a good way.
I blame the parents. I honestly. But I think she got at one point got like a fixed grin on her face. It just like every time you look over, she's just smiling, but inside the eyes have died. You know what I mean? She kept saying, you can imagine just going, Jonathan, what a fucking arsehole. Like, is it too late to get him adopted? And I feel sorry for them, but what can you do?
Okay. We're very sorry for you as well,
sorry,
by the way. Know your challenges. You did a bit of Tour de France. We did Australia as well.
I mean, it was Tourism Australia we went to, and I'll be honest with you, they were like, you're going to face Glenn McGrath at the MCG, right?
An overreach,
and you've got to see how many balls you can hit, right? But obviously, Glenn McGrath's the absolute man. Now, we obviously, as a rugby player, was a limited skill at the best of times, but you don't have that individual execution like a goal kicker, perhaps, maybe kicking for touch, maybe. But in cricket, that ability to bowl and pick and choose where you send the ball was remarkable. I'd never seen a first-class cricketer do it. And Alex went up first, quivering in his pants, and we had to get like extra small because it didn't fit around his little tube legs. And
I was actually once I was actually once in the school team that was all out for 7. So facing Glenn McGrath at the MCG isn't necessarily at the top of the list of things I'm going to achieve in life.
He looked like, that. Have you ever watched Toy Story? That Sporky, right? That's like a spork face with like pipe cleaners as arms and legs. That's what he went down there, and he faced some balls, and he got scared a little bit, but it's fine.
Defended my wicket.
Did defend the wicket.
Like Jack Leach.
I went in there and I thought I'd razz him up a bit, right? And the first ball he sent it down. It was quick, but I thought he had to have more. So I mugged him off and said, come on, you might as well stay fucking retired, right? So he gave it a little bit more. And he sent one and it nicked the inside of my leg, and it was okay. And I hid the pain, but inside it was like, mummy, right? And she wouldn't have anything to do with me anymore because she's embarrassed. But if she had been there, why don't you love me? I suppose turning up is sort of sport and love. And so then Tins went in and I wound him up. And what I realised was what he said was 70%, he was going at 40%.
And he had 15 staples in his head.
50, yeah. And
he's 55, he was bowling at 40% and had 15 staples in his head.
But he'd obviously made out, because in the world of kind of corporate stuff, everyone's like, risk assessment. I mean, imagine that, Glenn McGrath, MCG, risk assessment, death, right? That's what you'd put in brackets. They're just risk. You just write over in a big red pen, risk, don't do it. So they hadn't even given us arm guards or thigh guards. So I thought he's going to be going a little bit lighter than usual. But I wound him up and I said, Tin said, you're nothing, right? So as he was down, I said, Tin says you're nothing. Royal family says they're going to just annex Australia and just tarmac over it. They don't want it. That's what I told him. So I told him, I said, fuck this, we're not interested, right? And honestly, he for a second, he just notched it from 40 to 48. Sent this ball down, honestly, almost gelded you, didn't he? You were almost a eunuch. It was horrific. And then you suddenly dawned on you that, if he'd wanted to, he could have absolutely dismantled us. So
he basically said, if I go anything over 60%, I can't walk the next day. So
neither can we.
My piece would it's snipped
chance
anyway.
Of hitting it pretty small at the best of times, but it works though. Three times.
Does work 3 times.
3 shots, 3 goals. That's all you need, isn't it?
But
You're welcome, Daily Mail.
He basically, I was. He was the fact that he just went. He saw me walking down the wicket a bit, didn't he? Trying to get to it before, and he was like, "I'll just tuck him up." Yeah. And the fact that he did tuck me right in.
We had an amazing time in Australia, actually. And if you fancy watching My Moment of Glory, which has been a long time coming, it has to be said that you can check out the challenges that we did on the Good, the Bad, and the Rugby YouTube. Obviously, the Lions Tour next year, which I'm sure many of us are going to. It's going to be incredible. It's not just that. It's got an incredible decade of green and gold coming up in Australia. Go and say good day to Australia, and you will have the time of your lives there. Genuinely, there are so many things to go and get stuck into. One other bit of summer news, which I just want to bring everyone up to speed with, which is that we've done a book.
Yes, we have.
And if you, it's the story of everything that we've been through, which is actually quite a lot. But if you want a summation of the book, we've gone out to a few people and said, could you possibly do us a testimonial? And amazingly, we actually had one back from Owen Farrell, which I thought was quite exciting when the email came in. And Owen has given us a testimonial which simply says, I want absolutely nothing to do with this book, Owen Farrell. And would you believe it? It's actually on the front page. We've actually gone with that as our testimonial. So that tells you all you need to know. Should we do story time with Mother? Do you want to do a quick...
Story time with Mother. What a weird, perverse world. Hello, come and sit on my knee.
James is going to read.
Yes, once I've learned. This is a little extract from the book. This is entitled Honest Mike. It's a little abridged for the show, but we'll get on with it. Payne, Tins and I haven't argued much, if at all, but we have butted heads over various things. If I have had a falling out with someone, which admittedly happens every now and then, Payne might say, look, Hath, you don't have to blow everything up. There are other options. And I'll tell him that I'm just saying what I felt, but it won't go any further than that. However, I have had words with Tins, who can be quite blunt. Well, after he's consumed a bottle of red wine, he might become annoyingly honest Mike. One night on the infamous Marseille cruise ship at the Rugby World Cup, Tins suggested we have some rosé. When I say he suggests have some rosé, what he means is he will get through a bottle, I will have a couple of glasses, and Payne will pretend to drink, but will in fact nurse the same glass until we leave. He once nursed a pint for so long it caught fire in his hands and set off all the fire alarms. Having found a decent steak restaurant tucked away on one of the decks, I put Tins in charge of the wine. Tins ordered a lovely bottle of wine, the starters arrived, and we had a very pleasant time chatting about all the characters on the boat. They seemed to have every rugby player who had ever lived on board, including former Scotland scrum half Andy Nicol. The organisers had gone turbo with getting their pound of flesh out of the talent. There were activities with Andy about 10 times a day, 6:30 a.m, sunrise yoga with Andy Nicol and Mike Tindall. 7:30, breakfast with Andy Nicol. 10 a.m, shuffleboard and croquet with Andy Nicol. 12 noon, lunch and rugby chats with Andy Nicol and Dwayne Peel. 2 p.m, basket weaving with Andy Nicol and Noel Edmonds. 4 p.m, high tea and scrum talk with Andy Nicol and Gethin Jenkins. 7 p.m, haggis, neeps and tatties with Andy Nicol and Kenny Logan. 9 p.m, how to smoke a cigar and clear a ruck with Andy Nicol.
You have no idea how accurate that actually is relative to the lived experience.
Frighteningly accurate.
I walked past the theatre on a couple of occasions and it was just Andy sitting in half darkness on the stage with no crowd in sight, silently sobbing, and every now and then begging his chaperone to please let him leave or just to put him out of his misery. The chaperone remained impassive and emotionless, watching the clock in case he tried to leave before his time was up. Anyway, Payne suddenly says, oh, just to let you know, there's a real problem with this boat. I'm hearing a lot of people haven't been paid and they're going to go bust. I was looking, that's exactly like a recording of him, if I'm honest with you. I was looking down at my steak at the time when I heard a big bang. I looked up and saw that Tins had stabbed his steak knife through the top of the table. He turned to Payne, frothing at the mouth, with his mortgage eyes on, one fixed and one variable. That's the problem with you, Payne, he said. You're just so fucking negative. There's always a problem with everything. Why can't you just be positive for once? He was pretty merry by now, and to be honest, with his eyes rolling all over the place, I couldn't work out initially whether he was talking to me or Payne. He looked like Mad-Eyed Moody from Harry Potter, one eye revolving around the room. Even the waiter and a woman 3 tables away thought they might be in the firing line, only to breathe a sigh of relief as the eye tornadoed away to a new target. Payne knew that Tins could get quite frank after a few drinks, but he hadn't expected knives to be involved. Alex looked like a fish out of water, just his mouth opening and closing, and no sound coming out, looking for me to help. Tins kept saying, I'm just being honest, I'm just telling it like it is. While Payne wasn't saying a word, and once he polished off our main courses, Payne walked out of the restaurant ahead of us like a flustered bird. I said, Tins, it's time for us to leave. And he said, I'm coming, master. His ability to walk was slightly impaired, so I was half holding him up as he waddled out from the boat. Then he said to me, I know what I'm going to do, before breaking into a sprint, spear tackling Payne ahead of us and very nearly putting him through a shop window. Payne was near to tears and hyperventilating. I soothed him by singing an old choir song he likes and rubbing his palm like the Black Widow does to the Hulk in the Marvel movie. So sorry about this. After...
You will be.
After a bit of time, he was back to his posh old self, reciting sonnets and getting ready for a big day of flower pressing.
With Andy Nicol.
Oh. Zara came out a few days later, and when we mentioned this to her, she confirmed that this has happened before. It turns out this was one of Tins' trademark moves to become bluntly honest whether anyone wanted him or not. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
James, Jack and Rory Haskell, ladies and gents. Confirm or deny?
No, I cannot deny that might happen every now and again.
I'll certainly vouch for that. Yeah.
But, you know.
PTSD, haven't you?
It keeps us honest.
This is the first book. This is the first book where the three people who've written it end up suing each other, which is remarkable because I think we're quite worried about lawsuits coming in from the outside. But
we've had it looked over quite a few times by lawyers and barristers, haven't we? You've taken a few references out. I mean, listen, if you live by the sword, you've got to die by the sword. I don't think it's a real problem, is it?
Yeah, here endeth the lesson. The detail says our brand new book, The Good, the Bad, the Rugby Unleashed, is hitting the shelves on October the 24th. Apparently, you can pre-order if you fancy it from Amazon and all your favourite bookstores. Available as an audiobook, all three of us narrating it. Contains unheard stories, too spicy even for the podcast, apparently. If that is your thing, Christmas around the corner. Do get involved. So this is, of course, our big season kickoff show. Let's get into some of the detail of what is to happen over the next 10 months or so. We're going to talk about the big news that's happened over the summer, preview a huge year ahead for the Lions, of course, heading to Australia as the finale, and to bring some sense and some intelligence to proceedings, which I've been craving for a while. Would you please give a very warm welcome to the former Scotland captain, Rory Lawson, the Lions legend, this John Fox Davies, Ireland hero, and Leinster's all-time top try scorer, Shane Horgan, ladies and gents. Coming out, Rory, Fox, and Shaggy. Warm welcomes all. The band is back together. We'll have a little hug. You're looking well. It's like hugging the traps. Come on in. I'm amazed you've come out, actually, because I thought you might have gone into your taxi and said enough. Shane is one of the most eloquent, erudite, intelligent analysts in the game. And I've seen you wincing off stage, but you've come out.
I love it. I love it.
Your fee.
I think there should be a spoken word section for every podcast from here on in.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be right, wouldn't it?
How are you? Any drama, excitement? There's someone just really nice and calm and ready for an exciting season.
Summered well. It was a good summer for Ireland.
Your reaction with that drop
goal in the last minute was so good, like amazing. Do over Razzie as well. That was sort of a bonus. And meanwhile, New Zealand are losing all their games as well. So pretty good summer. Oh.
Typically Irish. Welcome to you, John Fox. You're looking well. Are you? What's happening?
He's only had 30 holidays this.
I know.
So
he
far
hasn't aged.
Judith Chalmers of the rugby world.
You have not aged. You've looked 15 since I've known you.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just the first summer off in a while, so I've enjoyed just being at home and. But yeah, thankfully I don't age like
me.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I didn't want to say anything.
You're like a reverse dog, so you're like actually you're 7 years less than you actually are.
I'm rolling back. I've been 30 for 5 years.
Well done,
it's all like cash, though, isn't it? Just washing in it, bathing in it, wiping yourself in it.
And cash goes a long way in Wales.
I bet it does. Have you kept your jockstrap and your boots close at hand? Are you wanting to play on? Have you got options on the table, or are you
no
sliding
options
into
table,
retirement?
But I'm just enjoying a bit of break and see what happens. I'm actually going out to see George North next week in Provence, so I might take my boots and my scrum cap, see if Provence need me out there for a couple of months.
And are you looking around the globe at where you'd like to holiday and therefore potentially play as well? Is there anything on the horizon?
Yeah, international airports are key spots to look for potential rugby clubs, but we'll see what happens, I think.
I'm sure Ibiza's got a rugby team, though.
Not yet, it doesn't.
Because if it did, Benidorm does. Benidorm does.
Well, who does?
Benidorm does.
Benidorm?
Well, that's the Welsh in him,
That's a bit niche, that.
That's the Welsh in him.
Rory Lawson, you have moved back down south.
Big summer transfer.
It is, on a Bosman.
To the
city. Is it a big money or is it
on the Bosman route? Yeah. Free transfer down to the big smoke. I love the pace and energy, and I get to see you guys a bit more. So here, I'm no longer than 2 weeks in, and I get to hang out with you in a live show in Soho. So what's not to love?
And you were saying backstage you were incredibly proud of Scotland because they went 4 from 4 this summer, despite the fact they're playing Bolivia, Colombia, Uruguay, Ecuador.
They just played through one game. None of them went to sleep. Joking, that's not true.
Scottish rugby on the up.
Hey, opportunity for growth. You've got. I mean, at the end of the day, us Scots are.
Did they all come back from that stag do or not?
Say again. Well, yeah, it's a case in point, Alex. Very good point, well made. But Scotland have had 100% record against the best teams for a while, England, and they thought they'd go and take on some other tier 2 nations in the USA, Canada, try and grow the game ahead of the World Cup.
The only one putting the best foot forward for 2031. Aren't
well, it's about growth. One of my favourite tours ever was the year before the summer before I joined Gloucester, to Canada, to the Churchill Cup, otherwise known as the Churchill Stag. Yep. It was an unbelievable trip. England Saxons on the Saturday won that. Canada on the Tuesday, won that, had 10 days off. I was captain of that tour. And Steve Bates was our coach. And so from Tuesday night, we were allowed out from there. And a couple of guys went missing in action. Steve said, we're going to pull together again on Sunday and prepare to play the New Zealand Maori in the final 6 days later. Said, yeah, no worries. Anyway, Steve by Friday had realised that he had barely seen a squad member in the previous 3 days. And he said, right, change of plan. Everyone meet Friday night. So I had to do a ring around. And I had to try and pull guys back from Vancouver. We were in Edmonton, and I had to pull guys back from Ottawa, Vancouver, and Toronto to rejoin
Mexico
the tour.
City,
So I expect the guys would have had a wonderful time on that tour. And yeah, you're right, Alex. You said it. It was 4 from 4. So the only Northern Hemisphere side to go on tour and win
that
4.
Churchill Cup. If you know, you know. I don't think anyone ever watched it. No one tuned in to see it. But if you went.
My Churchill Cup was in London. The one year I got picked for it was in London.
It was in Isha, wasn't it?
Yeah. When I actually played, we ended up playing, I can't remember who we played, but we ended up playing the New Zealand Maoris. And actually, ironically, I was single then. It was different times because now you can't behave like that. But that was then. But I was there, and we won a Churchill Cup. And anyway, we had an afternoon off. I found a friend, a special friend, and they came back to my hotel, and we're having a lovely afternoon watching, just chatting really about we're just chatting about feelings and stuff, and like at appropriate distance, and it was really lovely.
Nowhere in my 15 pages of running order does it say anything about the Churchill Cup.
No, but we had that anyway. Some of the lads got giddy that they were very jealous that I was having such an informative, calm, and relatable conversation with a member of the other sex. And they really wanted in on that conversation, so they opened the door when I was really quite deep into the conversation.
Well, the first time, some might say.
When I was really sharing some quite important views. Anyway, a certain coach, I wasn't going to name, but let's do Historian West. He, I'm not involved in rugby. Honestly, doesn't matter. And he got a bit upset about it. Anyway, so he found out a bit. We played Scotland at half time, had a really good game, was absolutely carving up. Dorian West took me off the field. Anyway, after the game, I was like, "What did I do wrong?" And he was like, "Listen, Chief, let me explain. You had a female friend at the hotel. I didn't like what you were talking to her about, or whatever else."
Why does he sound like John Wells?
I don't know. That's similar part of the world. And he went, "Actually, it's inappropriate. I'm going to teach you a lesson. Wind your neck in." And that was basically his idea of teaching me a lesson that I would learn, and that I would learn from the error of my ways and be more professional after that.
And didn't you learn that lesson?
And the rest is essentially history, ladies and gentlemen. And that was it. So that was kind of my Churchill Cup, where I got educated on a process that basically just made me double down. So I had lots of conversations after that.
Good.
I set up an academy after that
for conversation. Shall we whip through some of this? That's your out point, Tom, when you're editing. That just goes straight on the cutting room floor. Shall we whip through some of the summer stories? Because there's been a lot going on while we've been on our beach towels. Let's deal with the Rugby Championship. First of all, there's still obviously a lot to come. But Rugby Championship headline for you is?
New Zealand 1 from 4. Springboks 100% record. And probably the headline is, Australia have got a lot of work to do. Record defeat against Argentina last time out, down in Argentina, and I think it's one whereby clearly South Africa have grown in the URC, playing against the Scottish, Italian, Irish, and Welsh sides. But no, I think they're going from strength to strength, 4 from 4. The team to beat at the moment. Razor obviously hasn't had necessarily the start he would like in the Rugby Championship. And just kind of finding their way, knocked over by Argentina. Disappointing loss in that regard. But I think at the moment it's kind of South Africa at the top and the rest kind of fighting for the scraps.
We are going to talk Lions a bit later on, but Joe Schmidt. I mean, are we asking for miracles from him?
It's not great.
Australian?
I think, the big news from the summer is that those results by England and Wales aren't maybe as good as you thought they were.
Yeah.
That's a weak, as weak a Australia team as we've seen, maybe, and New Zealand aren't at the races either. And I know South Africa are good, but
very harsh on New Zealand.
Well,
they're not the races.
Well, compared to them, and
they sort of beat South Africa for 60 minutes, then lost it in 20, which, granted, is the bomb squad coming on and doing their job. And the other weekend, it was 16-10. I think that's quite harsh. I think yes, Wales, they're shit. I'll let John answer that one.
Nice
But
beer.
I think it's hard. I think it's cemented South Africa as how good they are. But I think you were right fighting for the scraps. But I think there's a close battle for second.
But listen, there is.
I'm not going to say that Ireland would go walk over this,
maybe
this All Black team.
slightly over-egging it a little bit. But
I know that
suppose,
you're giddy about it.
Yeah, I'm giddy about it. It comes from the perspective that New Zealand are, their standards are so high, they're so good. We just listen. I come from a generation they just didn't get beaten, and listen, I never beat them, so. Delighted when they get beaten a few times, and it redresses the balance a little bit. I think the Australia thing is different. That to get back to the question, how highly I rate Joe Schmidt. I think he's brilliant. I think he changed Leinster, he changed Irish rugby. I still think he's the most important coach that Irish rugby's ever had, including put Andy Farrell on that list as well. For how he changed the structures, how he changed the thinking of coaches, and developed a whole raft of coaches that followed in his footsteps. But that seems like an even bigger job than I thought. I thought he'd have a greater impact even at this point.
If anyone can he? Or is there just not the tools to build what he needs to build?
Well, the other thing is, and this is maybe a little harsh, in that Joe Schmidt, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, is a different coach. The game was in a different place. What he was adding, other coaches have added already. So it's like sort of Mourinho of, when is it, his glory years in the mid 2000s, and other coaches come on board, new ideas are embraced, and then the uniqueness that was Mourinho, the uniqueness that was Joe Schmidt doesn't seem quite as unique. And I suppose the tail end of Leinster was an issue. Tail end for Ireland was an issue for him. Probably the role in New Zealand wasn't quite as successful as we thought it would be, and there was internal issues there. And then we see my expectations were very high for Australia, but he has to deliver, And I think we're going to see what Australia are really like. Do they have the nuts and bolts, or could anyone do a better job? And is Joe Schmidt, this iteration of Joe Schmidt, as effective as the one was where he changed Irish rugby 15 years ago? Quick question.
Should the Lions still tour Australia, South Africa, New Zealand? Or is it time to say Argentina?
Vegas.
Well, just 10 games in Vegas. A 10-game tour to Vegas.
Doesn't matter who
Argentina. I mean, it will be very interesting is when the women's Lions tour itinerary is released. It looks like it'll be France, it might be US, it might be Canada, etc. Is it time to open the shop to other countries for the Lions to tour, or is it still heritage, history, and what's gone before?
I think that tradition is one of the best parts of it. Like, I think you tour with your national squad, and it's it's extremely professional. But with the Lions, there's that old school nature of backing up, in a couple of days' time, or you go out with the boys, have a couple of beers, and you got to show up to training for the team to make sure they prepare. So I think, you couldn't really tour Argentina because, I couldn't name a club team out there. So,
Maybe go Bolivia, Uruguay, Ecuador.
Yeah. Sorry.
Be a hell of a
Hell
state
of a
before
tour.
you arrive at the
Hell
first
of a
test.
tour. Why are we taking 100,000 fans?
Exactly.
No idea.
Yeah.
But
So
no.
you keep it as it is.
I would, but I people have called out for the Lions to tour South Africa this season, and whether or not you go the highest.
Can you change that now?
I know, and it's I think you just got to. Teams go through phases. New Zealand aren't in the best spot that they are. If the Lions are touring New Zealand, would people think, it's going to be easy and all that? So it'll be an interesting one.
But if you did that, if say, there are whispers of that they're doing a feasibility study on whether they should, you can't. It's like
on what? Sorry, on feasibility. On what?
Feasibility of whether they could bin off Australia and go back to.
We're 10 months away from it.
I fully agree. And also, you're taking a tier 1 nation, fucking kicking it when it's really at its lowest ebb at the moment, and it actually needs focus on it in that country.
I think we've got an issue with rugby. I think that we don't recognise the best bits of our game, right? And a lot of that is tradition, and tradition is something that builds over a very, very long time. It makes rivalries. It's why people are passionate about the sport. And I think often the case, in trying to create something better, we carve away the best bits that make rugby. I think we've got to be super cautious about that.
Hold that thought, because that might be something we pick up on a little bit later on.
Yeah.
You're gonna
I quite liked, actually, I never would have thought it before, but because of the state of French rugby, and I'm involved in a couple of things behind the scenes that I can't get into too much detail with, but I kind of got a bit of...
Sorry, what?
Yeah.
Are you influencing backstage?
Yeah.
Now it really is time to get off the boat.
Yeah.
Just call me El Presidente. It's not even French, but doesn't matter. They'll do as they're told. No, I basically, obviously, a couple of things that guys, I'm involved in a report that's coming out in where it's examined rugby as a whole and examined the Premiership, the finance. It's quite interesting. But I can't give you the findings. But one of the things that was interesting is obviously the development of French rugby, the football, the TV rights, and how big a fish that is. Touring France now as a Lions tour, 3 tests around France, playing Toulon, Toulouse. The top teams in there would be, I think, pretty special. Bordeaux, I think, and to tour around a country that actually lives and breathes rugby could be an exciting extension, because obviously in the women's game, French are seen as the premier team alongside New Zealand and England. So I think it would be amazing, because when you go there, all these European Cup games that we absolutely adore, these passionate French fans, these incredible stadiums, the culture, the wine, the food, it has everything.
Are you on the board already?
I'm on board
as well.
It has everything that South Africa, New Zealand, and Australia have, but they weren't really a power. But I now think they have that, because let's be honest, and they are. I think in terms of world rugby, the one nation that is growing and the popularity is growing, the money's growing. They are leaps and bounds in certain aspects. So I think you could potentially do that. Just playing devil's advocate. I'm not withstanding the tradition, of course. I understand exactly right. Shane's 100% right. Fox 100% right. That is where it's traditionally been. But I think if you're going to tap into a growing market and attract other people and create an amazing spectacle, France would be one place that I would put on the list.
Just going back to your point about sort of knowing what you've got and not always just changing it for the sake of it, what that does lead on to are these rumours around the British and Irish League. Yay or nay?
I'm a big yay.
Are you?
Yeah, I am. And I've been
So
for
change
quite a long
it if
time.
it suits and don't if it doesn't.
Well, I think no. The point is the URC, that's what it's called for the last couple of years. It was called, something else before that and something else before that. There was different teams involved. The format was different. It's been such change over time for that competition. I think it hasn't had the sort of consistency over a period of time to actually bed in any tradition. So there's very little roots there, they would say, or even rivalries that have developed over the time of that whole competition that's going a while now. What I think is we need to Hask's point, French rugby is a powerhouse.
Yeah,
it is, and not just one division. It's a number of divisions now, right the way down 3, 4. I think touching on professionalism. Big TV deal, like gathering all the best players. England is the financial powerhouse. They need to tap into a type of tournament that is going to compete against that. The sort of, not the antidote to them, but a truly competitive league against that, as a bollard against that. And to do that, I think a 2, say, conference league or 2 division league with the best teams from Ireland, the best teams from Scotland and Wales, I think create an incredible proposition. And that is harsh on the Italian teams and it's harsh on the South African teams. But actually, I think this is about survival almost of the game. And you look at what's happened to some of the English teams over the years, in the last couple of years financially, I think this is a stronger stronger product that will have totally brilliant rivalries in it, a number of markets and more sellable, higher end TV rights.
Defending champions, Glasgow Warriors. Yay or nay?
Yeah, Shane makes some great points in there. I think if you look at Glasgow, their route to the final, they went over to Munster in the semi-final, managed to win there, and then ended up in the final on basically a 6 or 7 day turnaround to go from Munster back to Glasgow. Glasgow booking flights. Al Kellick, MD, former teammate of mine, MD at Glasgow Warriors. This idea of booking flights to get down the players and management down to Pretoria in South Africa to be able to play a cup final, the venue only which was decided on the 6 days earlier, 7 days earlier. Prior to the game in Munster, in the big on the big screens in Limerick, Munster were promoting the final being, in Ireland. And, that's one of the challenges that it brings. I think the reality is we know the rivalry that the Six Nations brings. We know the rivalry within the UK and Ireland. I think bringing a 2-conference league, realistically, we've seen it commercially, rugby's hard. So we need to make it as enticing as possible to real passionate people about the game and create these rivalries, cross-border rivalries. And then from there, there's probably space for 20 teams. There's probably finance for 20 teams. What that looks like, I'm not 100% sure. But 20 teams operating across 2 different tiers whereby there's promotion, relegation, I think is the right way forward, whereby fans can travel, cross-border, but not having to totally break the back of it. Glasgow against, the Bulls in Pretoria. I don't know how many Glasgow fans made that trip, but I could probably count on my 2 hands the number who were actually able to take that on and see Glasgow win the title down in South Africa. So I think it would be a move forward.
I think it's easy for us. Is there any appetite from the English teams, or sort of English fans?
No, it rains in all your countries all the time.
To watch that, because I think rivalries that have developed through Europe, Leicester and Munster, or even something like Leinster and Bath, those sort of, I think they're really interesting fixtures. But maybe that's because I'm looking at it through a URC perspective as opposed to a Premiership perspective.
My worry with this is we sort of did something about this in COVID, and that it's about timing. And I don't think the timing is now. I think they missed the time. I think timing was COVID with no rugby going on. Time to build this properly, actually execute it properly, and they haven't done that. Now I feel it's a situation where the RFU have just laid off 40 people. The Premiership Rugby have just laid off more people, which is probably a squeeze from CVC and the fact that we're not doing financially what we're supposed to be doing. And, let's change a format because that'll work, because 90% of all rugby clubs lose money. So let's change the format. We've changed the format numerous times over the European Cup, and now we've gone from a TV rights where its high was 27 million for the European Cup. Now it's 2.5 million on a TV channel no one pays a subscription to. So I just...
You could have bought it, couldn't you? One of your relatives could have put the cash in and we could have had the good, bad rugby.
Not even my relatives would invest.
Well, probably not.
Let's do three more questions on this. So I want to ask where this would leave Europe, and I want to ask what you do with South Africa and the Italian teams. But the question to you is, what does a British and Irish league do for Welsh rugby?
Well, if it's 2 conferences, probably be in the bottom conference at the moment. The way it is.
What do we do with South Africa?
But I think what it will go back to.
You are crying out for something in Wales at the moment to light the fire again. And
what we need, maybe those old school, you hear the players are playing in the 70s of going across the border, playing the games against Bath, Leicester. And I remember the big European games when I was a kid going to Sport the Scarlets against Leicester, Northampton. And I think it's far easier for fans. I think the issue is that we're making it easy for fans not to go to games. There's too much rugby on TV, especially in the URC. They play every game. I think if that league where, a bus ride from Llanelli to Saracens is doable, but a flight from London down to South Africa is financially crippling to some people. Yeah. And I think it makes it more realistic. My only concern around the fact that there's chat around this league now is that, the Premiership have always been ring fenced, that we're strong, we've got this product, we don't need anyone. And now if they are coming to the table, what is going on behind the scenes when we're talking about financial issues and whatnot? So I think it'd be great, but I'm concerned what lies beneath, essentially.
I do think that a UK league would be amazing, because it would be a genuine one where you can reduce games because you can split it into 2 leagues and you can actually make a playoff actually mean something, rather than the Premiership one there. Someone can win all the games, finish top, and then they still might lose in the final and they don't win.
I still feel that you're Payne from Gloucester days, Tins.
I know.
And I think it provides a very elegant solution to Europe as well.
So what if you get this going, what happens to Europe?
You've got 2 big leagues You have the top X from France. You have the top X from the UK and Ireland. And, you could have a knockout competition there. What fun that would be.
Is this actually are we moving towards this, or are they just exploring it? I mean, is it actually...
I don't know, but my understanding is it's very exploratory.
Right,
and there's no commitment, and it's just sort of having a look at it.
So, but you hear 2095, this will be unveiled.
But you hear there was almost a global season. We almost got there, but then CVC invested. So then clubs are like, well, actually, we don't need it now. We've just got this influx of cash, so we don't need to do it. So we actually stabbed ourselves in the foot by taking sort of CVC's cash, because then all the owners are like, oh yes, we got an influx of cash, but it hasn't fixed the problem.
The biggest challenge, CVC have chucked a lot of money at rugby. Their biggest challenge, and they, as I understand it, they've not been able to move things forwards, primarily based around a broadcast deal. And we've spoken about broadcast. I'm sure, I have zero doubt that a competition that covers Ireland and the UK and those teams and the rivalries that are in there would be worth a heck of a lot more value than a combination of English Premiership with 10 teams and a URC with 4 nations represented, whereby realistically everyone builds towards the playoffs, and then you need to finish, in the top 8 to be able to make the playoffs, and that's where really things matter. So I think for me, the value comes from broadcast rights. If everybody saw the bigger picture in the growth of the game in that regard, then we also saw, let's not get away from the fact that we need the ability for kids to go to games and engage with clubs and learn rivalries and love the game the way that, most of us grew up loving the game. I think that's a big part of this. So for me, that's a key factor within all of this.
Yeah, and it's consolidation of TV rights. There's 7 different subscriptions you need to own to watch all the rugby you want to watch at the moment. You just can't do that to people. It's just, you need someone to sort of take it by the proverbial balls and actually bring it in-house and be able to see everything in one spot.
What happens to the South African Italian teams? Or do you care?
The South Africans go back to South Africa.
Do you reinvigorate the Kerry Cup?
I don't think
put it back into
the
Super
South African
Rugby?
teams have been in the Northern Hemisphere for a few seasons now. Let's not base the whole success of Northern Hemisphere rugby on appeasing the teams that have just joined a couple of years ago.
No, they'll take credit. They'll take credit for everything that we've given back.
What do we do? What do we do with it? It has to be a consideration if you're going to form a British and Irish League.
Well, the consideration is they can't be part of the British and Irish League. That's the only consideration.
Right.
They can't.
Cool.
Otherwise,
see yourselves out. Good luck.
Yeah, there is a little bit about that, but it's this idea of having to travel to a different hemisphere to go and see like a semi-final or a game in the league. It's a nonsense. We're meant to be a fan-focused, a fan-centric sport. Yeah. Like that just doesn't equate. And the Italian thing is difficult, but they'll have to wear it, I'm afraid.
Okay, bit of meat on the bone there. I think we could do the drink. I definitely could do with the black eye. Black eye's available at the bar. Do you recovered enough to be able to do a little blast of black eye?
Recovered enough?
Well, you were sort of emotional and crying 10 seconds ago.
No, Black Eye Gin is an award-winning gin that combines botanicals from each of the leading rugby nations with a core mission to support the future of our game. £1.50 from each bottle sold funds 3 key categories: research, risk and recovery for past and present rugby players. The plan is for Black Eye to become one of the biggest donors to rugby-related causes within 5 years. Swap a beer for a gin and tonic and help the game you love. Available from Amazon, Ocado and Master of Malt, with more listings to be announced soon. Master of Malt. More listings to be approved soon. It's an absolute belting drink. If you're not drinking it, why are you even here?
Ladies and gents, will you give a massive hand, please, to Shane, to Fox, to Rory, to Mike and to James. Grab yourselves a drink. We'll be back in about 15 minutes, is it? Thank you very much indeed. Just a quick note from our friends at NordVPN, who are back, would you believe it, and offering Good Bad Rugby listeners an exclusive deal. Did you know that you can switch your virtual location, allowing you to save money by purchasing flights, hotels, subscriptions from other countries at cheaper prices? And what better time to make the most of it with huge rugby events like the British and Irish Lions Tour to Australia, which we have discussed already and get into in the second half as well, coming up in 2025. How has Nord bailed you out this summer?
G-Brands was very educational.
They
on
were
that.
good, actually,
I
weren't
did not
they?
know
Andy
that
Rowe has been
if you
booking
keep
flights around the
looking
world
at
from other
flights
places.
without NordVPN, your price will go up. But if you use the NordVPN, then your price
shut
will
your mouth,
not.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
I did a bit of rugby champo, which won't surprise anybody.
Yeah.
You, on the other hand,
Oh,
finger on the
God.
pulse, have been watching 24.
Yeah. NordVPN is great because I was using it to watch 24 when I'm a bit lonely at night after a DJ gig and there's no one there to hold me. I would watch that and that would soothe me. Jack Bauer's power and just his intensity. And also his misunderstoodness. I felt I could, because
The number of
Do you
new words
reckon-
that have appeared in this advert, I don't know.
Do you reckon you look a little bit like Kiefer in a slightly
No, but
unattractive
I've got the same
way?
power and presence and mystery about me, and that could I might fold you up like a Dexter, I might not.
If planet Earth was in your hands for 24 hours, I'm not entirely sure we'd make it out alive.
No.
To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/goodbadrugby. Our link will also give you 4 extra months in the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box. Knock yourselves out. Let's head back for part 2 of our second show of the season. Shall we start with the Premiership first of all? Do you want to go bold on I'm looking at you, and the fear in your eyes is real.
Yeah.
Do you want to go early with a winner? Do you want to pick us a bolter? Do you want to pick a player you're looking forward to seeing? It was a heck of a campaign last time out on the pitch. Are we going to get the same again?
Yes, I think we will do. I think actually, ironically, all the stuff we talked about, the products on the field at times is fantastic. I think, as every team gets as fit and as strong and as powerful and game plans change and good recruitment, I think, Northampton for me will be right back up there.
Back to back.
What Phil Dowson's done there, really interesting. And when I left it, after my 3 games or whatever it was, if you told me they were going to go and kick on with that young coaching side, I would have been slightly surprised.
You'd have hung out for a bit longer.
I made a bit more effort. But I've already gone on a couple of premierships, no one gone about it. But I think for me that they are definitely a very quality outfit with some amazing young players, and interesting the competition between kind of the 2 young tens, Northampton Harlequins. I think it makes for exciting viewing.
They've got such a good way of attacking. Vesti's done such a good job in terms of how they attack and how they work together with Furbank as well at fullback. So I'm sort of intrigued by that. I think Bath are going to be up there again. I think they've just got
Money.
Well,
How amazing you brought that up.
yeah. He is right. I think Finn Russell coming in to that team has really brought it together, and I think they've got a good enough team to keep competing for a fair few years. So I do think it could be a little bit of a Northampton Bath fight off again. Then there's going to be players. Sale will be in the mix. I thought Exeter did it exceptionally well with a group of unknown players, really. And this is what the Premiership is becoming a little bit. Is a feeding ground for the next generation. So, but I think Bath and Northampton have really set themselves out as two sort of teams that will deliver for a few years, I think.
I think one of the interesting stories will be to see how Sarries go. I mean, changing of the guard.
Yeah.
A lot of players who have moved away from that club, the Vunipolas and Owen Farrell, to name just a couple. But there is a changing of the guard. There'll be a changing of the culture, and it'll be over to others to drive things forwards, because the heartbeat has been Owen Farrell for a long time.
Yeah.
Maro being captain as well, actually,
Yeah.
at Saracens. It's a really interesting call, because every time kind of any lines...
You've always said he's never captain material.
Well, I don't think I've said it so bluntly as that, Michael, because I'm not annoyingly honest Mike.
Honest Mike, he had a glass of red wine backstage, and now the world's in trouble.
I think I probably finessed it a little bit. No, I think for me it's interesting with Maro, because I asked Eddie, because when the Lions tour came about, kind of, I think it was 2017 or perhaps slightly before that, they asked, who would be captain, and we were doing stuff for the BBC, and they're obviously so set on the fact
Those
that
are the days, eh?
Yeah,
long gone
whoa.
now, son.
When I was palatable, not anymore. I think it was interesting because the camera people, they asked us, do you think Maro Itoje is the perfect person to be captain? And I went no, and they were so certain that I was going to say yes. The camera went off me to go on to the next person. It was like Ugo Monye, and then came back. I was like, what do you mean no? And I said, well, he hasn't ever captained his club side. He hasn't captained international level. And I think just because he's one of the best players on the field, that goes back to the belief, the old sort of belief that rugby has from rugby club days, where your best player is your captain. That works at under 8s, it works at under 10s. You remember the best player is always the captain. It doesn't work in adult rugby. And the one thing I knew about Maro was incredible player. athlete, very dedicated to his game. Was he the most verbose natural leader? And that's not, you don't need Churchillian speeches at times to lead, Martin Johnson being an example. But when you spoke, you had that kind of seriousness. I didn't necessarily see that in Maro. I see someone that was an incredible player, but was quite insular, was very focused on his game, would run the lineouts very well, but wasn't necessarily the greatest leader. I think over time, with his level of experience, his life experience off the field, how he's broadened his horizons in certain aspects, the games that he's played in, to the level he's played in, that in itself forges an incredible leader made out of a hard iron. And I think he will be really interesting to see how he grows into that mold, because if he gets that right, then you start looking at his potential as a maybe England captain, then you start looking at him as a Lions captain and how that follows on. Or it may be a case, again, that it suits Saracens because he's been there, because he's been part of the furniture, and maybe that's as far as it goes. But I think for the first time, that's a really interesting thing, because Eddie Jones, I asked him, when I said that thing about Maro on TV, was I talking out of school? Was I being a bit of a dickhead, which is not unlike me? And Eddie goes, no, mate. He goes, he's not the right leader at the moment. He's not where he needs to be. There's other better people. And he went ahead of that. I think now, looking at Maro's age, where he is, his experience, what he's done on the field, few can say that they have what he has in his CV in rugby. So I'm very excited to see how he leads Saracens, and whether it kicks on or whether Owen Farrell and the Vunipolas were the heartbeat. I don't think they were moving forward, but they certainly were for a period.
We shall see. URC, Leinster.
Oh. I don't know.
Even need a
They'll
question.
lose a few finals.
It doesn't even need a question. I mean, and that is a worry.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, emotionally, I can take it anymore. But it is such a crucial year for Leinster, because somehow they've managed to be allowed to sign RJ Slyman and Geordie Barrett. When you talk about the Irish structures, if we're really being honest, and I'm a one-eyed Leinsterman, they shouldn't be allowed to do that. It's not good for the sort of balance of teams in Ireland. It is very good for Ireland, for Leinster. It's exactly what they need. Some heavyweights in the second row. Listen, they've got good second rows, but you throw that into the mix as an impact player and an offloader, a game breaker. If he stays fit, if he gets fit, he could be a revelation. He could change the way Leinster operate. Geordie Barrett, in an already packed, back line, can slot in anywhere pretty much across it and be a phenomenal game changer. But the biggest story, or whether it happens or not, is Frawley at 10. And I think that's the area that Leinster have mismanaged over the last number of years. For me, he's been the best 10 at Leinster, and for a number of years, they haven't gone with him. They haven't given him a shot. They had an opportunity to give him a shot last year, just before Christmas. They didn't back him fully. Farrell sees something different in him. I think Farrell sees what a lot of us see in him, that he is a truly exceptional player with a very high ceiling. It is now the time for Leinster to pick him. And if they do, you got to think they've got every chance to do so. And if they don't, I don't know where Leinster go this season if they don't win something. You could lose Europe to a phenomenal Toulouse side, or La Rochelle on their day, or even Racing. I think there's no way Leinster should be losing the URC. They shouldn't be doing that, and they should be getting very far down the line, if not winning Europe.
Where would you play Geordie Barrett then in that back line?
I would play him. It would be a toss-up. Well, I think it would be injury based. I think it would depend. There's always somebody's injured, right? Okay. There's always Hugo Keenan was missing this year. You'd play Barrett at full back. One of the two centres. I think Ringrose is vital to the way Leinster play, but he was injury profile. He's going to be out for them this season. Barrett can play 13. Barrett can play 12. I think you can't mess with the 10. Frawley is the 10 in my book, and if Leinster don't do that, then I don't think they deserve to win anything next season. You could also rejig the back line a little bit to make sure that you get Barrett in somewhere else. You could rejig the wings, but I see it as a sort of almost injury cover. And if someone isn't injured between the centres and the fullback and him, then Jesus, who knows?
Yeah. What about the hopes of Glasgow and Edinburgh? Done Wales, we've done Ireland.
Finally talking about the champions, Al.
There you are.
Jeez.
Under the radar, Rory.
Yeah, I think for Glasgow, it's about backing it up. I think Franco Smith has done a phenomenal job at that club to be able to build a bit of grunt and edge to that squad. For them to win the title last season from finishing in the bottom portion of those playoff places says an awful lot. So for them to have gone away to Munster, gone down to Pretoria to win the title says an awful lot. And they've retained a lot, and they've added a couple of guys. Adam Hastings goes back. He's had a wretched time of injuries at Gloucester. He's gone back to Glasgow. I think if he can get fit and continue to pick up, they can continue to push on. For Edinburgh, Bill Matta goes to Bristol. Magnus Bradbury goes from Bristol back to Edinburgh. Darcy Graham's back fit again, which I think everyone in World Rugby is happy to see. Certainly those across the Scottish border are, because he's a guy that gives all the small folk a chance in rugby. He lights up a game. And I think for Edinburgh, it's about trying to find that edge that Glasgow have displayed. They lose too many games that they should win. They've got a lot of talent. Much like the Irish provinces, they've got to be able to manage the Scottish internationals within there. But I think they have the talent to be able to fight on all fronts, and I'd expect them to push hard, albeit, Glasgow are still the stronger of those two sides.
Watch this space on that. The next two might go together quite closely. So top 14 and Investec Champions Cup. Toulouse.
I think it's hard to look past that. I expect more from Bordeaux this year. I think they were good a couple of seasons ago, and they were disappointing last year. But I know someone that said Joey Carberry's gone, but he's broken his hand. But I think that depth, having Jalibert, Carberry in the squad.
I said that to you.
Yeah,
Just in there.
Sorry. I just
You should see the horse trading of notes that goes on backstage.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out where was that.
Dink.
Well, yeah. I just plucked it from there. Thank you, Shaggy. So and I think Johnny Gray's gone there as well. So their squad, these French squads are always big, and they have a strength and depth. So I expect Bordeaux to compete. La Rochelle are well drilled, but I think they haven't brought anyone in. So they're obviously very happy with their squads. But Toulouse, Dupont coming back after a gold medal, they'll want to go, and keep on with their success. So it's an obvious pick, really.
Toulouse are just so good. One of the stories of last season for me was Blair Kinghorn.
Yeah.
This release from Edinburgh out of the blue, basically a transfer fee paid for him to go to Toulouse, and he goes 14 starts unbeaten for them. Goes from essentially being a Scotland international, Edinburgh team member, to winning the top 14, winning Europe, living his very best life in France. And I love that. I remember commentating on Blair at the under-20s, and he was this sort of airhead, like hugely talented footballer, incredible. And actually, we ended up touring Japan at the World Cup in 2019 with his mum Karen, and she has brilliant input. And
Karen.
And honestly, but to see Blair, to see him go on and realize his potential, have such a great time, win titles while being totally outside his comfort zone, for me was one of the stories of last season. And clearly, Toulouse are almost unbeatable with him involved.
Pencil him in as a Lion.
No longer a bolter. A guy who because he can play 15 or wing. He can slot in at 10 as required. He's an unbelievable footballer, and now the level to which his game's kicked on, going down to France and playing around some players, whereby he's essentially given the platform to express himself, and it just goes to show the distance that a shared mindset and talent naturally, but when talent's there and they share a mindset. I saw him give a pass at the weekend that he doesn't give if he's playing for Edinburgh. He might give it with Scotland under Gregor, but at Toulouse he gives it, and and I think Ramos ended up running in for the score. He is edging closer towards his potential, which I love to see.
Okay, let's do Investec Champions Cup, and I want to start with you because I want to know where you're going to go.
It is hard to look beyond Toulouse, but the other thing about rugby is these things are rarely, linear, aren't they? You kind of think at the start of the season. Remember, we did this Six Nations last year, in this very theatre, and everyone was like, "Oh, yeah, of course, it's going to be France." Look what they're going to be the powerhouses, and look the way that panned out. So rugby is brilliant in not being linear like that, but it is very, very difficult to look beyond them. The thing, I suppose, the other challenges you'd think, from my perspective, are Leinster. But this is a really weird season for Leinster, and it's the second time this has been the case, but even more so, that no match and no performance means anything for Leinster until the knockout stages, in May. Like, Leinster can play any type of rugby and they can win by an aggregate of 40, 50 points in every URC game and every Champions Cup game, and it mean absolutely nothing, because the only things that matter now to Leinster based on the last couple of seasons are winning a URC or winning a European Cup. Like, anything else is failure. Now, that's a horrible position to be in, but that's the position they're in.
You've done lots of this if, buts and maybes. Is if the answer is, are they going to, yes or no?
Well, I'm changing my mind every 2 minutes. I did a thing for the social earlier on, and I said Toulouse, but I'm going to say Leinster. I'm going to say Leinster.
Go with the romantic choice. Anyone bar Leinster or Toulouse? Any curveballs or just?
Sorry, I just don't. We haven't mentioned like the Sharks or
Stormers, Bulls. Like, South Africa trips are hard,
and they've got Esterhazen's gone, I think, to the Sharks as well as Sia going back. You look through that.
You with your South African friends all of a sudden.
Oh, yes.
Haven't you changed?
Mate, they come at you so hard on socials. You just got to give them something every now and again. I think it's going to be really interesting, because I think Bath will be up there as well. I think they've got big game players, but I think to not look at someone like the Sharks with the class that they have, they're pretty much, like Leinster, got an international 15 of the arguably the best team in the world. So, God, where do we go with that? I think I just hope it turns into the tournament we hope it was, because there are some genuine contenders. Shaggy's saying that Leinster should be winning, but I think there's probably 5 teams that are going, we should be in the mix,
which is great for the tournament.
Which is great for what we are, and we sold it for $2.5 million. Brilliant, amazing. Yeah.
Final point on the Investec Champions Cup.
Yeah, look, I think what we've seen in the knockouts, power game pays returns. Toulouse, La Rochelle, the Stormers have come close.
Bordeaux
are thereabouts. I think the French power comes to the fore. Their budgets, their player depth in the latter stages. Shaggy mentioned it. Like, people say, "Oh, Jordy Barrett, great signing for Leinster, but he's not joining till December." Nobody cares about that till March, April at Leinster, because that's when the proper games start.
Leinster don't care about Jordy Barrett. They're going to flog him, and so that all their nice island centres are nice and fresh for all the big games. Flog him. He'll be useless in the autumn. He'll be useless when he goes back.
Do you reckon he knows that, though? Do you reckon he signed over thinking he's going to be a big noise?
He's going to be playing in Newport on Friday night. He's going to love it.
Unbelievable. Okay, I tell you what, I want to finish by asking each of you for a sort of wish for the season to come. But just before that, it's a long way away, but Lions 2025 to Australia. We've touched on the Wallabies, but just Man of the Series 2017, winner in 2013. You can only do one of those two again. Well, the alternative question is, what was the night like after the 2013 third test?
Oh yeah, that was pretty epic. I think
that was a Welsh team, wasn't it?
Yeah. 12 with the 12 of you, weren't there?
12, I think, or 13. I can't remember.
R.I.P. to all of them.
Yeah. I think we beat this Australia team now, though. But no, I think it was like, with the week, everything going on the week beforehand, I wouldn't have changed that whole experience for me in 2013, because it made it even better. And
do you mean the O'Driscoll not making it?
Yeah. So
you just keep your head there, because it was Jamie Roberts that took more of the. Well, it was Warren that took most of it, but Jamie took.
No, I think there was a Facebook page made with about 400,000 people that wanted me to break my legs, I think, at one point.
Right, so you did take.
That's an everyday occurrence for me.
Yeah,
that's just Facebook in general. There's 8 billion.
So there was a lot of heat. And
did you feel that going into the game?
I felt pressure. I remember speaking to Gats on the Friday. He goes, "How are you feeling?" I said, "Well, I've had better weeks." But he was like, "Oh, just make sure you win. It'll be all right." I was like, "Okay, no dramas." But then it made that whole thing when we did win, and the way we won was just even more special. And it was about a group of players that were trying to win a series. It was never about like a one person. It was about 30, 40 people going out there trying to win a series that hadn't been done for a number of years and still hasn't been done. So I feel like one of those old time players now that my blazer doesn't fit me, that I'm bragging that.
You're looking all right there, it's just depressing.
Yeah.
Did you speak to Brian after the game?
Yeah, well, in the change rooms afterwards, and we had it was amazing because Daniel Craig bought us all champagne in the change rooms. And
You do.
the 007 or X007. Yeah, so I.
Let's pick that.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Cheers.
From you, Tins.
I know.
Yeah,
All right,
but no, that
back
was
on.
so. Yeah, we had beers in the next couple of days, and then like the beauty of a Lions tour, you don't fly back until like the Tuesday, so it's like a stag do from the Saturday night till the Tuesday. So yeah, it was good times.
Great days. We'll get into more detail. Are we going to get a Lions tour for the ages?
It's tricky, isn't it? Because it takes two to tango, and that's the issue. It depends what sort of shape Australia get into. But I kind of get the feeling it's going to be more competitive than we think. There'll be a professional pride. There'll be the Joe Schmidt factor. And just the innate difficulty with touring. The Lions, if you look at it, they're not particularly successful. They're just not. I think they lose more tours than they win. So it's not a slam dunk. But for it to be a tour of the ages, you need Australia having sort of radical change in the next 9 months.
Yeah. The three of you can pick either a bolter or you can pick a tour captain. Rory.
Can I do both?
You please do.
Yeah, look, I think tour captain's a really interesting one because Ireland will have a change of the guard. Peter O'Mahony won't be captain. Sexton's gone. Keelan Doris may end up being the captain there. He'll be maybe one November series and one Six Nations Championship into captaining. Whoever does the Ireland job, Wales are in this period of transition at the moment whereby they'll be fighting for the bolter spots. I'd expect. England also slight changing of the guard. We'll wait and see what happens with Owen and Maro and all that kind of stuff. But for me, therefore, the stability.
I love the way you've teed this up.
Comes from.
On the long run.
I never ever thought I'd say that the stability.
Did you just say the stability comes from? Okay. ...
And the guy who was mentioned earlier on as being at the heartbeat of Bath's success and Scotland's success, Finn Russell. What better opportunity to bring a champion of the game who is going to grow the game, bring new fans into it, entertain on a tour that everybody wants to light up the game. The Australians need this tour to be a success because rugby union is well below Aussie rules, rugby league, and cricket, amongst other sports. They need it. They need this game, and as a result, the Lions captain should be Finn Russell to lead the Lions down there, playing a brand of rugby the like of which has never been seen before. And Farrell should pick essentially his equivalent to the Harlem Globetrotters. The bolter will be Rory Darge as his co-captain, as a back row scavenger, because they won't need this bully crew to go down there and knock Australia.
I'm sorry.
Fight that sales pitch
I'm
back.
sorry.
I dare you.
It makes sense because it makes
The
sense.
campaign starts here.
Oh, flower of Scotland.
Yeah.
Shut up, man.
It makes sense because Finn Russell can also support them because he can put budgie smugglers on Bondi Beach and everyone go, yeah, we all look better than that. So, in one hand,
Multi-talented.
whilst he gives with one hand, he taketh away in the other, and they don't care about rugby.
He's a man
anyway,
of the
so.
people.
Yeah.
He wants to engage the
And
fan
you deep
base.
fry that. Yeah.
I think you've laid that out quite brilliantly. Would
Yeah.
you throw
No.
anyone else in, or are we all in?
I'm on board.
I'm-
I'm 100% in.
I'm on Team Lawson.
Finn Russell for Lions captain. The
Yeah,
campaign has begun.
there's an argument to say, look, Andy Farrell should be put under an element of pressure by having equal contribution from all of the 4 nations that make up the British and Irish
Who's
Lions.
contributing from Wales at the moment?
The midweekers.
The drift.
Oh,
Actually, you've taken a few.
I think Jack Morgan.
Yeah.
I like if you can say fit Thomas Williams, who's gone to Gloucester.
Yep.
Mason Grady has potential.
Gareth Edwards is getting out of retirement.
Yeah, me and him are on the classic lines together. But yeah, no, I think there's a few, but I think we've got more short-term problems to figure out and then sort out before we start thinking about Lions places.
There's a lot of rugby to be played as well. Okay, shall we? You've got 10 seconds each for a wish for this season, and you can go anywhere you like. Shaggy, does it just begin with L and end with R to win something?
Yeah, no, that's too easy, isn't it?
Is that too easy?
Yeah. No, but yeah, I'll take that. And also, no other clubs to go out of business would be quite nice.
That's a lovely touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Fox.
Well, after hearing Haskell's story earlier, I say bring back the Churchill Cup, huh?
Good Bad Rugby. You take you to places you never thought you were going to go.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Rory.
A 6 Nations for the ages, and improving Italy, a Grand Slam free 6 Nations whereby we've got a proper contest right across the board, a strong Wales to contribute to that, and then a Lions series of the ages made up by an Australian team that develops an awful lot over the next 9 months.
Fucking hell, it's a wish.
Wishes.
It's not a
Fucking
miracle.
Genie, you get 3.
You should
Rule number 1, you can't wish for all wishes.
Well, you should see my 4-year-old's Christmas list. He's going to be so disappointed.
I'll go with something like, I hope they cut the comms between the TMO and the referee.
Oh, hello.
Serious?
Well, no, just get away from
I like it.
interaction.
I don't disagree with you. I think it's a very good
Let's just
one.
let the game play.
Do you know what I'd like actually to happen is whether whoever organises rugby to make some proper profound changes and actually stick with them, whether that's no contact in training, whether that's finally kind of understanding a bit about player welfare, understanding about what happens with the league structure, and do something positive, whatever it is. Somebody somewhere in rugby make a decision and go with it and stop sitting on the fence. That would be a dream. Just do something and do something well for once.
Can we have a round of applause for the wise words of James Haskell? I hope all your wishes come true. May I say that? We
It's
are.
your wish. Become more manly.
Yeah, I'll take
Sort
that.
the leak in the West Wing.
I'll take that as well.
Get the National Trust on board to take care of all of it. Something like that.
I give up.
Sell the tech biz.
Yeah, that is definitely a wish. Next week, we're actually off to Paris to see John LeMay. And actually, I think we're going to quite a special evening, which is La Nuit de Rugby, which is the Oscars of French rugby. You're on the red carpet. We're going to be speaking to the great and the good. Johnny appeared for you in the Bar Bars just quickly this summer. He's a former teammate of Tin's.
He did.
Johnny as a Bar Bar?
Absolutely brilliant. I was fortunate enough to manage the Babas. Johnny is unmanageable.
Yes.
He had me running all sorts of errands for him. Amusingly, on the very first night that he was there, he introduced himself to the remainder of the squad, and he was sitting around a table, with Kiwis, Aussies, English teammates. And he was telling the story of how he ended up at Angoulême, and there was a number of different clubs who were going after him. And then he got a call from the president of Angoulême to say, Johnny, we have not received a response from you. And he says, you must speak to my partner. She is much better at English than me. And she came on the phone, and he basically said, she said, why do you not want to sign for us, Johnny? He said, well, basically, I need a good house. I need this amount of money, and I need to understand a little bit more about the town. They said, we've got a lovely town. We have a house for you with a swimming pool, and we can pay you this. He said, okay, I'll sign on the dotted line. and he rang her. He rang her on the first night of the Babas. And I took a screenshot of this earlier because I took a photo of him while he was doing it. I need to remember her name for effectiveness. Severine. And he rang Severine. He said, and this was probably about, 1 a.m. French time. And she said, hello, Johnny, is everything okay? He said, Severine, I have 6 people here who want to sign for Angoulême. Can you pay them the same money as me? And he put on the same French accent they're putting on. And she said, Johnny, we can make it work. Don't you worry. So that was the very start of the week, and it only went from strength to strength. Fair play to him.
Mate, do you want to make it 7? Should we pass your business card on to Severine?
Oui, merci.
And on that bombshell, ladies and gents, I hope you've had a really enjoyable evening. It's great to be back together, and there is a heck of a season to come. I hope you enjoy every twist and turn. There is a lot to look forward to. Thank you for tuning in to The Good, The Bad and The Rugby in partnership with Continental Tires. If you enjoyed this, a quick note, do go and check out our new shows. We've got GBR Australia and New Zealand. Justin Harrison's on this week. That is a lock and load. Tuck into that if you'd like. Do enjoy Good Bad Rugby, South Africa as well, with the great Cornet Cricker. And of course, whether on the rugby field or the road, safety always comes first. And Continental Tires have got you covered with top safety, grip and performance. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review and follow us on social media for the latest rugby updates. We will see you soon. But will you finish, please, with an enormous round of applause for Shaggy, for Fox, for Rory, for Mike Tindall and for James Haskell. Enjoy the rest of our evening. Thank you so much. And we'll see you again soon. Off we go, chaps. Well done, team. Enjoy your seasons.